All right, guys, it's 10 o'clock. Let's roll. We are recording. Hi, everybody. I'm Tish Hicks. I'm the Master Sensei of the VO Dojo here in Burbank, California. And this is our free monthly Q&A webinar called Ask the Sensei. So each month, myself and our fabulous techno sensei, Dan Lenard, the home studio master, are here, and we invite an esteemed colleague from our voiceover community to join us, and we're very, very pleased to welcome Faith Rumer, who is not only our studio mate, but our vocal sensei for the dojo. So when you're part of the dojo, Faith and the work that she does, which is so hyphenate, like a lot of people have a lot of hyphenates and it diffuses what they do. Faith's hyphenates just amplify everything she does. I'll let her tell all of the magnificent things that she does. But so here we are. So this is how it rolls. If you're just coming on, if you can say where you're calling from in the chat, and fill out the poll, and cue the street sweeper. 1 second. No, actually, I'll just hold off. Ignore that street sweeper. And we'll be taking questions from the questions that you write in the Q&A. So, I also wanted to invite one other person who's not introduce one other person who's not a panelist per se, but is on the call and is going to be helping with keeping track of people's questions and stuff. And that is Diana Suko. She's our talent support. So she'll be putting things in the chat about links, about stuff we're doing and things like that. So if you need anything, you can also be connecting with Diana on that end. So, well, Dan, let's have you introduce yourself and tell us what you're up to, and then we'll introduce Faith, and we'll jump in with questions.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Dan Lenard, the home studio master. I'm a voice actor, and I've been doing this since the Ford administration.
I thought you were going to say the 40s.
Some days it seems like. But I'm an expert on home voiceover studios, creating them. There are only a handful of people on the face of the planet that really understand specifically what a home voiceover studio is. The rest are a bunch of audio geeks, and audio geeks don't hire voice talent. So, there's the way it's supposed to be, and I can make those recommendations and answer your questions on those things as well. So I'm here for your service for this next hour.
Excellent way. And what we love working with you, Dan, is that you have an approach of there's a simple way that it needs to be. So that's,
I just tell it like it is.
We got that. All right. Yay. Well, thanks for being here. And Faith, can you tell us about all your wonderful hyphenates and
Sure. Yes.
There you go.
Yeah, you can hear me fine, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I have been a voice and singing and an acting coach for over 30 years. And I have been, of course, I do that myself. I'm a voice singer. I use my voice every day. I'm an actor, and I incorporated it all into what I do. My master's is in speech pathology and voice therapy, so I worked with voice injured patients. I have a vast, extensive experience with that, and I incorporate it all in how to really use your voice and take care of it and strengthen it and have really what I call vocal power and freedom, so that you can do whatever you need to do with your voice. Your voice will be there for you when you need it for any type of situation, and that you can really count on it to be there for you. And also you're going to find brand new ways to use your voice.
Yeah, do everything that you can with it.
Yeah.
Excellent. Faith forgot that she's also an A-list dialect coach. She's
Yes.
She works with very high caliber people on movie sets and things like that.
Yeah, I've worked with I've Academy Award winning actors in that, and also Grammy winning musicians and artists for the singing and voice as well. So that's my background, my extensive thing that I do. But I work with people who are just starting out too.
Yeah, yeah, this is the beautiful thing. The beautiful thing. Fantastic. Well, let's jump in with the one question that we have. We can make up questions. So Faith is here to answer your questions, your vocal questions. Dan is here to answer tech, and then we'll all kind of chime in on everything. So let's get started. Does everyone, let me just get these things up here. Does everyone understand where the question button is? There we go. Okay, we've got these to start with. There we go. No, we got it. All right. Okay, so the first question is from Tara, who is starting our Broadway Guerrilla Guide this in April, and she's part of our Corona camp right now. Do you have any recommendations for everyday voice maintenance? Not necessarily just for when you have an audition to prepare or a job, but things to do every day to keep your voice in tip-top shape. That's a great question.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. You have to remember that your voice is a physical expression and extension of what's going on in your life. So the thing that you must try to do every day is to find some ways to relax your body and relax your voice. If you're walking around with a lot of stress, and a lot of people are doing that right now, it's going to show up in your voice. And so you don't want to wait just to the day of the audition to address that, because that daily stress and tension in your voice and in your body is going to show up cumulatively. And pretty soon when you go walk into that audition, you're going to be nervous, and it's going to really show up. So you're training your body to relax. That's a really big thing. I would suggest, if you don't do some kind of meditation or yoga, I have some really great relaxation exercises that I do for stretching the voice and the body, so that you can be in your body when you're on everyday basis. Hydration, super important. Make sure that you really are hydrating every day, and watch how you're using your voice. So don't put yourself in stressful situations. A lot of us right now are on Zoom a lot. I mean, you know that, Tish, right? And we have to still, when we're on Zoom and we're talking, we have to still use the voice in its fullest capacity. Otherwise, we're going to get into this feeling into my throat. I'm going to be this, and I'm going to be talking, and pretty soon I'm going to be wearing my voice out. So I think a lot of, Tara, what you want to think about is the things that you would do for the audition before you audition. Start to make it a daily practice. So stretch, hydrate, make sure that you are opening your throat and not letting the sound stretch and, sit in your throat. And then also make sure that you are using your breath support, even when you're on the phone talking to friends, or when you're on Zoom calls like this. I think that's kind of a basic thing. I do have a vocal care ebook that addresses a lot of these things and will help you to do, take some daily vocal care.
Yeah, and if you want to share that, we can make sure that Diana gets a link to that. So it sounds almost like almost doing the equivalent with your breath of, like, if you notice yourself slouching, like take a deep breath and make those little adjustments as you would with your physicality.
Yeah, actually, absolutely. And you can use breath work, easy breath work that people use in meditation, which is really just, and here's one of my favorite tips. When you're taking your breath, feel like you're receiving the breath, that you're not taking it. See, I said taking the breath.
Oh, I love that.
Take my breath. I'm taking it, right? But if you receive it, it's a really different experience.
Wow. That's what we call, this is the symbol at the dojo. We go, a semantic shift. Oh, wow. That's cool. I like that. Well, yeah.
I love that too.
Great. Let's, thank you, Faith. That was great. Matt, hi, Matt. Dan.
Yes.
Asks, Dan, is your VO booth soundproof? And do you feel that is a must in the suburbs? My studio has sound blankets in the basement. Also, how do you feel about Avalon EQs? What would you recommend for extra EQ? I have an old Symmetrics that works in great. Oh, you've answered this. Can you say this out loud?
Yeah, no, I didn't.
And Dan's just saying the same thing to everyone. but yeah, go ahead. We can take these.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here's the thing. It's not the equipment, Matt, which is why I put that there. There's no piece of equipment that's going to make you a better voice actor. And especially, outboard channel strips, all these things. Now you see the studio behind me here where my hand disappears.
Fake.
I can think of only one thing that is in that picture that may have anything to do with voiceover, and that's a microphone, which is up here somewhere. That's the only thing. The rest of this stuff has deadly squat to do with voiceover. So stop following these Facebook forums and say, oh, this is great. Oh, I got to try this. You got to try that. None of this is going to change the way you sound. And here's why I have this philosophy. The idea of a home studio is not to make you sound great. It's to make you sound like you. That means sounding like you do as you do talking to other people. We don't talk to other people in these one-on-one conversations that we have in voiceover through compressors, EQ, all this stuff. It's not there. It's wholly unnatural. Mm-hmm. And engineers don't want you futzing with your audio. Like you're hearing me now, it should sound like you're in the same room with somebody. And, it has to do with the acoustics of the room. It has to do with how you use your mic and how you set your levels. And if you don't understand any of those things, then you need to learn how to do all those things and not guess and not go to Facebook forums asking questions of people who are going to give you 30 different answers. Because what sounds good to one person might sound like nails on a chalkboard to somebody else. So you don't need an Avalon. You don't need a big preamp. You don't need any of that stuff. What you need is a microphone, a good space to record in, and know how to use your software and your interface to set your proper levels.
Now, here's a question, Dan.
Sure.
So I think a lot of people, and a lot of reality is that spaces are noisy. Now, are there ways that the technology can mitigate spaces being noisy? And obviously the ideal is that you live where the dump trucks are not, but or you can get it down. Is there some way that the technology can help in mitigating if you have a less than perfect
there certainly is technology you can use, but if you don't know how to use it, you will sound even worse. There are very precise settings to certain noise reduction strategies that are involved in certain software. If you rely on those, then you're not doing what is really necessary, and that is creating a physical space that works right. And my friend Sylvan here is asking a question. He says, hi, Dan, with COVID, I discovered that I have neighbors. Just a microphone for a noisy space. Well, the thing is, the more expensive the microphone, the more sensitive it is the more it's going to pick it up. Somebody, I don't know if I talked about this last month, somebody emailed me last month, said, I can hear birds, outside my window. What should I do? And I said, get a shotgun. There's not a lot you can do about that except create a quiet space, a closet full of clothes. Especially if you have a walk-in closet, something that's going to isolate you. That's really the best way to do it, or you need a booth. But if you're going to rely on the technology to clean up your audio, then you're really barking up the wrong tree. And I'm sure there's other experts out there. Oh yeah, I can do that, and I can do that. But you're not them. So you've got to have a certain level of knowledge of how to use these things, how they do what they do, and why they do them. And I wouldn't rely on them. There are some that are really kind of nice, and
What is a dB level that would be acceptable? Like, what are we?
Oh well, I mean, if you should be peaking on average well above -9, but between -6 and -4. And I get lots of demos from people who are the little tiny waveforms in them and stuff. But Sylvan was asking, what's a good microphone for a noisy space?
Mhm.
One that is placed in some place that's not noisy.
Although,
So
we
a
did.
416 is a good choice for a quiet space.
What was the recommendation?
A Sennheiser 416 is good for side rejection and stuff like that, but it's not a panacea. It might help you with a couple of leaf blowers outside once in a while, but you
Um,
can't rely on that.
yeah.
Mask.
Sorry, it's virtual. It's virtual. We I know with everyone needing to record at home that the idea of a USB mic has been less like just going to the whole XLR and having preamp and stuff has been more where we're moving towards. However, I did want to mention we have a cool working relationship with Apogee Mics, which is based in Santa Monica, and we've done a couple of times where we've gone down and did a tour of the studio and did like trials, like experimentation with it. And I have to say that the Apogee Hype mic, we were working in literally, a big space that was their theater space with brick walls and like a big Quonset hut sort of thing. And it was set up in the middle of the room. And I don't even think it had like a sound reflection around it. And the difference between, it has several different settings that allows, like there was people walking around and stuff. And there was a lot of clean, clear take. So it might be something to explore in terms of like if you live where it's super noisy. Otherwise, get up earlier than your neighbors.
Yeah, or work after they all go to bed or something.
Yeah, I think there's things like that. Yeah, good. William Klein says, my voice seems to get exhausted after working several hours. How can I remedy that?
Yeah. William, that's like something that happens to a lot of us when we're working for a couple of hours. So you have to look at it like if you were an athlete, how are you going to take care of your voice? One of the things I really suggest is take 5 minutes, 10 minutes away from the booth, walk around, relax, stretch, come back and do the work. Because if you continue to work for several hours and your voice just starts getting more tired and more tight, you're not going to get the takes that you want. So then you're going to be frustrated and it'll start to build on you. So that little bit of time, just taking that time to stretch, go away. Sometimes drinking some, well, of course, being hydrated, but warm water, like a just hot water, can help to relax your throat and relax some of the things that are going on. So that's my big recommendation, is that you want to do that. But I will say that if you're not really relying on your vocal technique, if you don't really have really good breath support, or your power's not coming from that and you're not supporting your voice, you might find that your voice is wearing out because of that. So if you feel like that's something you need, haven't had in your work, because there's a lot of people who are doing voiceover who haven't had it very much work on their voice itself. I mean, singers and people and actors generally have that training, but a lot of people don't. So that might be something you might want to look at too, so that you can have more, your voice will just last longer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that metaphor of like, well, you can't, if you can't run for 7 miles yet, well, how can you keep on walk a little in between until you can build up that stamina?
That's perfect. And even if you're at the gym, they teach you, to do several reps and rest. So find your rhythm. What it might be for you. I think everybody's a little different than that, but when you start to find that you're fatigued, even just getting up and shaking it out, stretching and shaking it out and coming back will not only get your body back into the place you want it to be and your voice relaxed, but your mind and your mental state will probably be better at that point.
And then you can focus on form too, right? That you can go, oh, right, am I supporting? Am I just like if you were doing reps and you started going like, ugh.
Right.
And and then I think everybody, we're talking a little bit about biorhythms, about environmental rhythms, like when are my neighbors quiet, when are my kids asleep, when is my dog out for a walk or whatever. So but then there's also understanding your own physical limits. So how do you create a structure of work that if you're doing work that requires big chunks of time, how are you parsing it out and pacing yourself, knowing where you're at and taking care of that, right? So if you can only run half a mile at a time, then structure your workflow that way, right? And
Yeah.
continue to build.
But and I'd also say that depending on the work that you're doing, if you're doing characters that are extremely hard on your voice or different than your own voice, and you're pushing a part of your voice that is not what you're really used to doing, you're going to end up exhausted. So you have to find a way to be able to create some of these. If you're doing especially animation or games, video games or anything like that, sometimes they require a lot of big voice. One of the things that I have in my voice course is about how to scream without hurting your voice.
Yeah, and I was working on an animation yesterday, and I was like, wait, I want this intensity, but I want this volume, but then it keeps on blowing out. So it's like a combination of like, so Dan, how do I get it not to blow out? Faith, how do I not blow up my voice? But
yeah, there's a way to actually get that going without pushing too much air against the microphone. And that's what is it really a powerful way to learn how to do that.
Yeah, well, that just also makes me go like, oh, this is a cool triangulation, right? Because we've got the work, we've got the voice, we've got the way that it's being recorded, and you really have to figure out where are the nuances and the finesse of understanding how all three of those things work.
Yeah, I would say that if you're discovering that you're pushing too much air against the microphone when you're getting louder, but even if you're getting a lot of popping, right, it means that you're pushing too much air against your throat.
Interesting.
A little note there. This is a little scientific note that's kind of interesting. Everybody loves these things. When they measure the pressure in your mouth, I was at USC in their voice lab. We used to measure air pressure, oral air pressure. It's exactly the same as what's underneath your vocal cords.
Interesting.
Right. So if you have a lot of air pressure in your mouth, it means that you have too much air pressure here.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, Faith isn't just like telling you how to drive. She knows how to fix the engine too. That's cool. Let's keep on going. Michael says, Faith, as far as dialects, super strong with some, weak with others, best ways to perfect those that are challenging when you have a strong ear? Ooh, that's a good question.
Oh, good. That's a really great question, Michael. I think it kind of depends on what dialect you're talking about. So you said you're super strong with some, and maybe they fit in your voice really well. Some dialects are a little more challenging because they require us as English speakers to use sounds that we have never used before. I remember when I was working on my French American dialect, that the back of my tongue got so tight and tired from working on the French R. And then finally, I would get it. So I think that that's probably what you might be coming up against, that it sounds that are difficult for your mouth to make, because you said you have a strong ear, so you're trying to emulate it. But maybe what's happening is that the physicality of what you need to do with the tongue or the mouth or whatever's happening, or the placement for the dialect is wrong. So you might be hearing it, but you don't know how to execute it.
To make it what you, yeah. And Michael notes that he's strong with South African and weak with Standard British, which is interesting because South African is actually the much more blended, nuanced accent that usually people are like, oh man, South African, can't touch it. So that's interesting.
I could probably tell you why that might be true. South African has a placement that is farther back in our mouth, right? So it's a little more central, kind of where we speak American speech, but British is usually very forward. So we're up here in this part of our mouth,
Ah, that's
in our
interesting.
head, right? So that might be it. It's really hard to tell until I could listen to you do it, but I would look at that. Maybe changing your placement might make it easier for you.
Hmm. Interesting. And I think with all that we had, Renee Johnson was our guest for Fight Club last month. One of our guests for Fight Club last month. She's Disney character voices. So we were working on voice matching, and I think voice matching and dialect, like all just going like, okay, what is it? How do you notice? What's the structure? Where are the nuances? What's the variation? All of those things. So it's like just being able to tune in, hear it, and then do it. Yeah, good. Let's see. Let's go to oh, well, we talked about David. I think we talked about a little daily routine, and Faith, you're going to share a little workout in the ebook. Is that correct?
The ebook is not a workout book, but I do have a course that is available. That
okay. So we'll be talking about that. So we'll be talking about that
with a regular routine in it, and everything is fabulous.
Yeah. Okay. So that's.
But there is a question here I might want to say: would a singer's warm up work well for VO? And I'm not so sure it's great for VO. I think it's not bad to do, but I've sometimes noticed that singers, their speaking voice is not that great if they haven't really worked on their speaking voice. And that's partly because singing requires a lot of air, a different kind of air pressure. You really need to have that support and air pressure. But when we're doing VO, it has to sound kind of natural, and it has to sit in our body a little bit better. So I think that there's I warm up differently for voiceover than I do for singing.
And like, can you speak of like what's one or two points that is different?
Well, I think in singing, one of the things we do is we warm up. We're warming up our voice with a sustained note, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're not really speaking. We need that articulation. We need to be able to have, let me jump back here. I think some of the main problems that people have with their voice, with voiceover, has to do with how they're articulating sounds. And so that is not something we really worry that much about in singing. We're really worried about supporting that tone, supporting the vowels, all of that kind of thing. And the consonants are important, but it's not really what drives the voice.
Interesting. Yeah, just even to make that distinction.
Yeah.
How do you support for speech, and how do you support for singing? So a vocal warm up for singing would have a different preparation.
Yeah.
Like a different sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great little distinction that you caught there. Yeah. Matthew Miller asks, what's essential for a home studio setup on a budget?
Okay. A microphone, a computer, a digital interface, all of which you don't have to spend a whole lot on. A good microphone, like an AT-2035 or an AKG P220 or 200, those are $150 each, and you really don't need to be spending $500-600 on a mic if you don't have the environment in which to use it. That's what's a $10,000 mic for. A $10,000 mic is for a really nice studio where they've spent $250,000 building an acoustically neutral and sterile environment in which to use that $10,000 mic. So again, it's not the mic, it's not the equipment. It's a good studio condenser mic is anything over $150. Anything below that, you're going to get somewhat of a noisy mic, and that's not going to help you. For a digital interface, if you spend more than $150 for that, then you're buying lots of features that have absolutely nothing to do with voiceover. All of the stuff that we use in voiceover was never designed for voiceover, with a few minor little exceptions and things that have come up in the last few years. It was all designed for recording music. And as Faith will tell you, singing is a very different thing from doing voice. When we sing very, very loud. We put a lot of sound pressure levels, SPL, into a microphone, so we don't have to use a whole lot of gain within a preamp. Voiceover requires a lot of gain, and so you need a good studio condenser mic and a digital interface that has enough gain to drive the microphone. But over $150 and like the $250 is all you need. A lot of people out there are buying these Apollo Twins, and they're paying probably about $500 more than they need to be paying for a digital interface, where you get something like a Focusrite Scarlett Solo or a 2i2 for $109 or $150, and that will drive a good studio condenser mic just fine if you use all the other requirements about the environment and using your mic properly. So, $150, $300, a mic stand might be $50, a boom mic stand, maybe you could spend less than $30 on that. And then there's creating the environment, and that's the big variable. How are you going to do that? If you have a nice closet with clothes full that you can walk into and set up in there, that's going to save you $6,000 right there. That made this whole call totally worth it. Showing up.
You can write off your wardrobe, your equipment.
I know a lot of people making a lot of money next to their pants and dresses.
Yeah, well, I think that's helpful, and I love the thing I love about this question, Matthew, is what is essential, and that's a great way to be thinking. Like, what is essential? Get that down, and then budget. What money do you have? This is one of the Dan's philosophy of buy the best that you can, and then get the work to get more equipment if you even need it, right? So yeah, this is good. Laura has a great question, and I know this is something that if you don't even if you have it, you know how treacherous it is, and you might not even know the dangers of it. But Laura says, I drink plenty of water throughout the day, have an excellent diet with aerobic exercise, but occasionally have reflux, where the liquid is caught in the throat. It's resolved by roughly clearing my throat a number of times, rough on voice, and returns after a few minutes. What's going on, and how can I prevent this from happening?
I know this is a great question, and part of the answer is if you haven't seen a doctor, you might want to, because they can give you check out and make sure that what's going on with you is really just simple reflux, because it could be something else. So you always want to kind of take a look at this stuff.
And a doctor or an ENT doctor?
An ENT. Yeah, I would look for an ENT.
Ear, nose, throat doctor.
Sometimes what we're you said some liquid is caught in my throat, so I'm not sure that it's liquid that's being it's coming up from your stomach, or if it's drainage from your sinuses. Now, I used to have a lot of problem, and I still do sometimes have, because I'm sensitive to what allergies and things like that, some drainage in my throat from that. So I would kind of look at both of those things. Now, if it's reflux, there are some things. It sounds like you're doing some good things with your diet. One of the things you have to be careful of is not eating spicy foods and what time you eat. That's really important. And also, you say that you drink plenty of water. And sometimes if you're drinking, I would suggest when you drink water that you do sips of water, like a lot of sips during the day, that you don't drink a big thing of water, because drinking a lot of water at once puts all that water in your stomach, and then you can have that backflow, that it was what we call as reflux, if you have any tendency for that. So I would be careful of that. And as far as clearing your throat, you can't do it. Stop.
Yeah. Because a lot of times as people are preparing to prepare, right, that there might be a moment where you have an impulse to go, but what happens physiologically, and then how do we? So there's that's a psychological of preparing, but then there's a physiological. So what is the effect of clearing your throat, and then how do you let your body know that you don't have to do it?
Well, and what happens is that when we clear our throat, we're banging our vocal cords together really hard. And that's what causes that sound that you're making. So when you bang your vocal cords together really hard, it also may send a signal to your body that your vocal cords are being irritated. So then what happens is the body can, I'm listening here, I have the lawnmower outside. I don't know if you can hear it. Just the sounds, like, of course. When you're banging your vocal cords together like that, you might send that signal to your body to create more mucus to sort of lubricate what's going on there and protect. So now you're in a cycle. So that's never good. I have had several students who were um, voiceover people or singers, and they've had allergies, and some of them have had asthma, but especially with the allergies, and they were doing that constant clearing of their throat. And I just got them to stop, just stop. And actually, what happened, it got better. They had less.
You just go, don't do that.
Yeah, don't clear your throat.
Interesting.
Right. So what can you do? It's never going to feel as good as clearing your throat. But if you notice, sometimes when you clear your throat, it just comes back. It doesn't really. It's such a momentary thing. And I mean, I could talk about this for a while, but I would get some sugar-free lozenges that you can suck on a little bit. Sometimes when I have that mucus and I do that, it'll just, especially like a cough one, it'll clear it off, right? As long as it doesn't have any like menthol in it. But that's a way. Take sips of water. A little lemon in water can work for you. A little bit of lemon in your water can work. Don't drink tea, because tea is drying to the throat. And then it's just going to dry up your throat a little bit, and then maybe you'll create more mucus.
I do got a product called alcohol. Do you know that product?
Yeah, that works. That's good. Yeah, yeah.
It's a gunk.
Yeah.
You use alcohol.
Yeah, I would recommend that. There are several things, natural things that you can do that are really good. But yeah, I know it's really hard, Laura, but you just stop clearing your throat. That's not helping you.
And also, like, if you're feeling anything like, what is this? It's affecting my voice. Like, don't mess around with it, guys. Because acid reflux is not, you think, oh, something's wrong with my voice. And you don't think that it's coming from here. But I have several amazing colleagues who have lost months and months and months of work trying to figure out what's going on. And it was something acid refluxy.
Yeah.
So it's really, 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 really essential to understand what it is, if it is something, to get it checked out. Alcohol, I think it's like that.
Yeah.
P-O-L.
I think there's an H in there. Alcohol.
It's not alcohol.
It's not alcohol. Just drink and drink.
Ask for it at the pharmacy over the counter.
Right, that'll help. Right.
Yeah, it's like an oldie timey sort of thing.
Yeah. And there, there's I would also try steaming. Steaming might help too.
Cool. Let's switch gears off of the voice stuff for a second and take Kia's. I don't have a lot to say about this, but maybe you guys have more. Yeah, about the streaming.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Well, yeah.
So Kia's question is, familiar with the medium of streaming, live streaming on Twitch, YouTube, and where's the overlap between streaming and voiceover work?
Right. Well, as someone who streams a show every week, Voiceover Body Shop, we do it live. I mean, is there a crossover with it? If you're a good presenter, I mean, voiceover, you should be a good presenter anyway. I've had training as a talk show host. It makes it a lot easier for me to do a show like that. You can, if you want to try it, that's fine. Is it going to lead to voiceover? If you practice it enough, but it's like anything else. You need to be taking classes on doing voiceover and acting and improv and those other things. And, I don't necessarily think one would lead to the other, but it can. Although voiceover tends to lend itself to doing the streaming. So,
Well,
it's sort of like a, kind of a reverse tack there.
Yeah, I think so one of the things, this is my take on it. So when I talk to people who have broadcast background, I talk about broadcast being a cousin of voiceover because it's a lot of the same skill sets and superpowers that you're going to be able to use, right? Of being able to sustain, keeping energy flowing, under like timing nobody's business, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of things that are superpowers, and it's a slightly different medium and a slightly different function, right? So depending on um, what you're doing in your streaming or your Twitch, it's like figuring out what is the function of what you're doing. It's a little bit broadcast. Sometimes it's information, right? Broadcast is getting information across. It's a little bit hosting, so kind of being the like a TV narration, like, hey, here's what's going on today, and this is what's going on. So you have that function. So understanding the function of it, the style of it, right? Because as a house full of teenage boys, I'm like, oh my God, turn the dribblers off. Um, like, so there's a certain style of how people communicate in those realms, and I think also I think I think that like I'm kind of riffing like where I'm seeing the things to take into account. Then you also have how long are you streaming for, right? What is the arc of keeping someone with you or on the journey with you? That has elements of an audiobook, right? You're continuing talking. Um, Here's something that's really interesting. I was talking to one of my managers this week, and we talk strategy and stuff. And we were talking about sort of the implications of, what are the implications of large agencies closing departments and stuff. And she was just talking about some of the financial realities of, voiceover makes a lot of money. And then she was talking about how much money that realm actually makes. And it was like, oh, I'm clearly in the wrong business. So I think that's really interesting too, like finding out as a voiceover artist, what are the things that are applicable, and then how to make it your own with the streaming, and then using the streaming to create a platform to, I don't know, to, I think this is a little, this is a place where things are coming together that are transforming old ways that we communicated. Like some of the podcasts, like everything's called a podcast now. Previously it was like a radio show. Previously it was a radio drama, right? But we call it a podcast now. So like how people are receiving things is called different things, but sort of the same function. So I think it's really thinking ahead and figuring out, like taking this question, well, what do you think they are, and how do you keep on developing them, and understanding that these things are other realms that might not be officially in voiceover right now, but we're actually going to be doing a podcast. We started a new series at the dojo. It's called the VO Dojo Go Guide series, and we're inviting dojo alumni who have had success in different niches to come and talk about how they got started and how they keep going. So it's like best practices and effective practical insights and best practices. So we're going to start with ACX, getting started in audiobooks, with a panel in July. And then in August or September, we're going to do a podcast one with Gary Kelly. So it's an interesting question. I like keep on thinking this way, even if we don't have the answers. We just asked a lot of questions and opened awareness. So thank you for that, Kia. Hopefully that was helpful. Good. Let's go back to Kelly here. Kelly's recovered from nodes and is asking about tongue, jaw, throat tension in relationship to headaches and vocal fatigue.
Okay, so yeah, your jaw and your tongue tension is definitely going to cause headaches. It can cause a lot of headaches and lots of vocal fatigue. So there are a lot of some things that you can do to relax that. You said let's see, I'm trying to see.
I'm sorry, I might have just I might have just erased it.
Okay, it's all right. I think she said that she's also a yoga teacher.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
uh, though I think that what you want to try to do is to find a way to release your jaw. Now, the hinge of the jaw. Sometimes what we do when we try to release the jaw is that we drop the jaw like this, right? But when you do that, you're actually using your jaw muscles to do that. And that creates tension. What you want to do is actually separate the jaw. And you have to do that by letting the lower jaw stay where it is, and then tip your upper jaw up, your head back a little bit. So I like to put one finger here and one finger here. And you're going to release the jaw. So instead of thinking down, think, there you go, Tish, that was better.
It's like giving your cat a pill.
Yeah, right. Now that is a really different feeling. You know, you can when you do that. I think that there's a lot of techniques that you can use. You can massage your jaw a little bit, but you have to be really careful that you're not vigorously doing it. This is one of the best things I found. Panting, taking the tongue and putting it by the bottom teeth. Do a slight pant. There you go. And you'll see that just relaxes your jaw. So I don't see who did that, but that might be a way for you to start releasing the tension in your jaw. But I also think that I highly recommend getting some really great vocal training for that, because really good vocal training is going to have that in it.
Yeah. Well, even just bringing awareness to the jaw, like to even explore that mild grindy crease jaw went pop.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Oh, right. That's how you walk around. Cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good. Oh, this is an interesting question, a poignant and timely question. Laura says, I'm a trained opera singer, but finding right now, since I'm constantly wearing a mask outside, that I'm straining the voice a bit. Vocal technique for mask wearing, that's an interesting. And just breathing also too.
Yeah, Laura, and I have actually experienced that same thing with my voice when, I have the mask on and I'm talking to people. So I think what I would suggest is to not try to get to them, not try to push your voice towards them, but just sit in your body and try to speak normally and assume that they can hear you. Because if you try to overdo it and let them hear you, you're probably pushing your voice probably more than you might normally do that.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's an interesting thing that, and it has to do with like, how do we communicate in voiceover too? Because I think as we have experience with each other, there's a lot of cues and hearing that happens from being able to see, right? My grandmother was hard of hearing. If she could see you, she could hear you better. But if she couldn't, right? So I think there's also just like a psychological, like, what, I can't hear you because I can't see the whole picture.
Well,
so
and
that might be.
Yeah, it is taking off some of the resonances and the power of the voice, without a doubt. But I would suggest that, use your body, use your voice, but try not to overcompensate.
Yeah, interesting.
Maybe try articulating a little bit more. Maybe that might help.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that might be something that could work.
Underneath your mask.
Yeah.
Hello, how are you? Oh, this is an interesting question too. Hey, Sarah, is it possible to learn to breathe more quietly when auditioning?
In good shape.
I think overall, like, Tish, maybe you have an answer to that. What do you do when you?
Well, I think so. First of all, the way that we talk about things at the dojo is connection first. So if you're usually, usually if you know what you're talking about and who you're talking to and why you're talking about it, usually you don't have any problems breathing, usually, right? So oftentimes with any, like if there's like breathing issues, or I ran out of breath, my first advice is check on your connection. Are you really talking about something that you are connected to? Because usually that takes care of itself. And then my next layer would be, what are your peccadillos, right? You know, like if you're talking to a 7-year-old boy, so one of the things that they might do is like, yeah, we were, you know, yeah, like, or it might be part of a pattern of how you usually speak. But if it's different when you're working on copy, then go to the connection thing. I find this I actually learned from Karin Gilfrey of Voice Actors of New York. But Karin sometimes does a awesome thing where she does like 10 auditions in 10 minutes or something. And
Wow.
she just has a technique of, and she's a trained opera singer too, but she has a technique of recognizing that having to take your breaths out of in editing messes up your workflow. So she'll take a large breath and then press record and then let it flow. So it and then you don't have those. So
And maybe that idea that we just talked about receiving the breath instead of taking it might change.
ooh, I like that. Yeah. Yeah. Well, try those, Sarah. Yeah, that's those are good thoughts. John Higgins in London, UK. Relaunching myself as an actor, trained but want to gain experience. A question that comes to mind for voiceover work is this: if you're new to voiceover work and have never put anything together like an audio reel, what should be on it and how often should you update it? Okay, I'll give a quick answer of this. So first of all, you need to know where an audio reel fits into the landscape, right? There's a whole landscape of opportunities where we can be making money with our voice. So what are you talking about? You know, which of these places in the landscape are you talking about is first, right? We recommend that the process of putting together a commercial demo will serve you in everything you're doing. The process of knowing yourself, knowing your voice, knowing who you are, knowing what you're bringing to market will serve in every genre. And just that process of going to that place of being prepared to a place where you can put together a competitive demo reel, right? So that's one layer of what is the demo reel going to do and who is it going to serve, right? So if you're going to send it to commercial producers so they can hire you for commercials, then they need to hear that they will best be served by having a commercial demo. Animation, narration, medical narration, promo, right? All of those things. So you need to know what those things are, what they require, right? And what you're going to be bringing to that party. So that's the first thing. The next thing is when to put together an audio reel. We recommend, are you able to pick up any piece of copy and nail it within 1 or 2 takes without any coaching? That's probably a good time to be putting together an audio reel, because that's when you're going to be able to stand in a competitive working situation and hold your own, right? So we want to kind of find that balance. If you wanted to put together something sooner, like little samples so that you can just get your voice out and be working and practicing, or as we're talking about these days, being able to, as we're on our way to be able to drive the Autobahn, how do you make money on the surface streets, right? So the things that should be on it are things that are truthfully you, truthfully serve whatever medium you're working in. And then, how often should you update it? How are trends going? Do you have new work? It kind of depends. You have to keep up with what the trends are and what's going on with your voice. Thoughts, Dan and Faith? It's complex. It's not just like, yeah, I'll just do it. Well, it is, because you can, just like you can just go get pregnant and have a baby. But then raising a kid is a whole nother thing, right? You can do it. Anyone can do it. Yeah.
For me, Tish, it's like everything else is preparation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that putting together an audio reel, like you said, when you feel confident enough to pick up any piece of copy, that would be a time to do it. One of the things I think that would be important is to, if you're thinking of doing that, is to spend some time recording your voice and listening to it.
That's interesting. Yeah.
You know?
There are professional demo producers out there, and I would never send out a demo that, at least a commercial demo that wasn't professionally produced by a good commercial producer, a good commercial demo producer. What they'll do is they will coach you, they will help you pick the copy, they will record it, and they will do the production on it. And a good producer of demos tries to highlight your voice, not their amazing production capabilities. And you shouldn't have to spend a fortune to do that, but there are a few good people out there, and Tish and I can always refer you to somebody who can do that. But never try to do that yourself, because that's how you get your auditions round filed when you start off with the first 3 seconds of your stuff, because it becomes immediately clear that you haven't gotten a professional demo.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We do a thing a couple times a year with our demo producers, who are Brittany Cox and Ryan Ricks at Next Level Voice Demos. We do a thing called Demo Listen Derby. It's on our website. You can catch the replay, but it's very I guess it can be sobering and inspiring, but it's very realistic about like how demos are listened to and how they're responded to, and what it might be a good thing to check out the Demo Listen Derby on our website, www.thevodojo. It's free, but it can answer a lot of questions about, okay. And so I think the other way to think about having your demo professionally produced is, interesting. This might be the right metaphor. You can paint your house, or you can hire a house painter, right? And it'll be painted, but how are the windowsills going to look, and things like that? I just had one of our handyman was here doing work, and he gave us a quote on windows, window paints. He's like, you know what, actually call a painting company, because what I can do by myself, doing with they can really do in a way that the process is streamlined. And so that's another way to think about it. And on the other hand, have samples that if someone says, hey, can you get me something, that you go like, yeah, I have that too. We don't want you to not having things, and then just understanding. There's so many metaphors going on, but well, hopefully it's helpful. I think if you listen to the Demo Listen Derby, John, it might give you a really good bearings of like, oh, okay, cool. And then there's always people to help. So ask, continue to ask for help, and you don't have to do this alone. So, and it doesn't have to cost $1 billion. You can figure it out. All right. Oh, good. We've got so many good questions. Rachel says, new, serious budget. Like to begin doing demos or self-tape, and want to know what you think are. Oh, we kind of answered this, right? We did the minimum budget. You can always touch base and schedule some time on Dan's calendar. And
yeah, the important thing to mention there is that I can tell you about all sorts of stuff, but if you don't know how to use any of that stuff, it's just stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's breeze through here. Strengthening your voice. What are some exercises? I think we'll. Do you want to answer that real quick, or do you want to say get the video, or?
Well, I would say that I have a course that I developed, an online course that would give you many of those exercises, Sarah, that will really help you. So that scheduling some time with me to work with me personally would help as well. I'm doing Zoom calls as well, but if you wanted to do the online course, that would be great, and you'll get a lot out of it. I have one basic course. I have one that is the core course, and it has 6 modules in it. It has a module for releasing tension, aligning your voice, aligning your body, breath basics, getting vocal power, creating some overtones and harmonics in your voice, the resonance training, and then also articulation training. So that's the basic core one, but there's also one for actors that adds some other things too, like creating some more emotion in your voice, how to scream without hurting yourself, and this amazing technique that I have called connecting your voice to the text. And that also helps. So there's those things that I know that was a lot to answer with that, but besides getting some vocal training, which is what I would suggest, there's that option too, to really have some exercises that can strengthen your voice. And it's hard to talk about it right now in a few minutes to give you an exercise.
And I just, this is actually a really good segue, because I just recognized that it's 11:01. We have so many great questions continued. So, so one of the awesome things about these calls, and then having Dan and Faith as senseis in the dojo team. This is why, because there's all these things that work together. So Faith's work is incorporated into everything we do in the dojo. Dan's work is incorporated into everything we do in the dojo. And then working with them specifically, I know, why don't we have Faith and Dan share, what's coming up and anything that you have to share with people right now, and how people can get in touch with you to continue working with you. Diana and I will do the same about what's coming up. And then usually what we do is, if you guys, Dan and Faith, have a couple of seconds afterwards, we'll keep this open and type in answers. Mm-hmm. And if not, if your question doesn't get answered, then touch base with us, because you can get 15 minutes with the dojo team. You can get, consult, and then we can get some of your questions answered. So Dan, what you got going on, and how do people keep in touch with you?
Oh gosh, I'm busier than a one-armed paper hanger these days.
Oh, it's crazy, isn't it?
Since everybody needs to have a home studio now because of the studio closures. You can reach me at homevoiceoverstudio.com, which is right there. And that's easy to find me there. You can contact me there. We can schedule a consult, and I can show you how to use all this stuff, along with telling you what you need. And also watch Voiceover Body Shop, VOBS.TV.
Resource. That's every other Monday, right?
Yeah, we've got Rebecca Davis on all this week, and then next week we do our tech talk, and George and I just riff on some stuff that you'll find fascinating.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, and then people can send samples too, right?
Oh yeah, they can. If you go to my homepage, homevoiceoverstudio.com, scroll to the bottom of the page, find the specimen collection cup, click on that. That's a Dropbox. You can drop me some audio, and I'll give it a listen, and I'll tell you what your studio sounds like.
Mm-hmm. At a very nominal fee, right? Yes. Good. And then Faith, it's kind of a big day, right? Because is this the kind of you've created this whole thing, and is this the first time you're telling people, or you say?
Yeah, this is the rollout for it, and I'm so excited that I got to do it here, and this is really great. This is a course I've been working on, and I put a lot of the information and things that I've learned over the years into this course, in a doable course. So there's several different courses that you can access, and I talked a little bit about it. One's the basic core vocal training, and the other one is actually for actors, but there's also a package that's both of those together, so that might be something you're looking at.
And how do we find you?
Yeah, you can get that at theartistfirst.com/courses. Yeah.
And oh, there we go. And then I typed it in. I'm like, look.
It's fantastic, right? And there's some payment plans on there for you for the courses. It's great. And for everyone on this call, I'm giving you $100 off.
Oh,
so and your coupon code is Dojo100.
This is fantastic. And if any of this resonates with you, Faith is pretty extraordinary. So,
it's an online do-it-yourself course, and you can do it. It's relatively inexpensive compared to going out and getting a lot of vocal training. But if you are interested in doing some work with me, you can schedule a consultation with me, and that would be, I would email me at transform@theartistfirst.com.
Great. And to get on your schedule.
Yeah. And then if you want to visit the website, it's theartistfirst.com.
Great. So in terms of stuff that's going on in the dojo, this is the first Wednesday of every month, totally free. You can just kind of put it in your calendar as a date. We are really excited about our Corona camp. I talked a little bit about it at the beginning. The Corona camp emerged out of the Broadway Guerrilla Guide that we did in April, and recognized that people still need ways that they can start adding voiceover into their world, or accelerate, deepen and accelerate and focus on the voiceover journey that they've already been on. Because for so many of us, this is the part of the performing arts that's still going, right? So I don't have to tell you, right? I'm literally preaching to the choir that is not going to be able to sing for another while. So what we've done is created a really affordable and consistent way that you can work throughout the summer. It's a do-it-yourself version of our You Should Do voiceover class. And Corona Camp is a weekly workout. You can get a sleeping bag or a tent or a cabin and join us for fast and focused weekly workouts. The first session is sold out. We've just opened Tuesday and Thursday sessions. So, and it's going to be starting next week. So if you are interested and haven't worked with the dojo, you can take in the first 2 lessons of the do-it-yourself and jump into the Corona Camp. So if you're interested in that, Diana just put that there, and then contact Diana too and get on our calendar, and let's talk about where you're at and where you'd like to be. The Dojo Go series is coming up July 14th, the ACX thing. And then we just had I'm not sure, it might already be sold out, but if you are a singer, we just had an awesome session with a bunch of opera singers, and we are creating a singers You Should Do voiceover virtual intensive. Our July session, our regular July session is sold out. We're adding this singers one, so if you want in on that. And then we're also enrolling for September and November. So there's always something going on. We're crazy over time. So sorry, we usually try and keep these tight. But stay in touch with us. Come back next month. Tell people that what's going on. One of the things about voiceover is that we say at the dojo is it's always just you, and you never do it alone. Nobody that I know is that's a successful voiceover artist with a sustained successful career has done it alone. And I think now more than ever, we really need each other. So keep on asking questions, keep on coming together, and keep on knowing that when we do come together, everything gets amplified and accelerated. So take good care of yourselves and take good care of each other. And as tough as things are, we're in a really blessed profession right now. There's a lot going on and a lot to be thankful for, and a lot that is going to continue to be where we can put our efforts and our creativity and our hearts and make money. So, all right, guys. Thank you, Faith. Thank you, Dan. We will see you soon. Yeah. And there it is. Thanks, Diana. See you soon.